You were born into a world that promised freedom, yet every rule, every system, every smile was designed to keep you quiet. They told you to study, to obey, to fit in, and you did. You played their game, believing there was a prize but the years bled together, and the reward never came. You gave them your youth, your energy, your hope, and all they gave you back was exhaustion dressed as stability. You can feel it now, can't you? That silent betrayal. The one they never speak of. The one hidden behind polite smiles and motivational posters. They never wanted you to win. They only wanted you to function. You remember the first time you tried to rise above it? The moment you dared to dream beyond the walls? You told them your vision, your plan, your hunger for something real. They laughed, not out loud, but with their eyes. The kind of laughter that cuts deeper than any insult. They called it unrealistic, irresponsible, foolish, and just like that, your fire dimmed because you believed them. You mistook their comfort for wisdom, their fear for logic. You didn't know then that people trapped in cages will always mock the bird that tries to fly. They weren't protecting. They were protecting the system that owned them. You started to notice the pattern. How failure wasn't just possible, it was engineered. How success was dangled like a carrot, just far enough to make you chase it, never to reach it. You began to see how every opportunity came with invisible chain. Debt disguised as education, dependence disguised as employment, approval disguised as love. And you realized the system didn't punish rebellion, it erased it quietly, efficiently. Not with force, but with fatigue. Not with violence, but with routine. The system doesn't break you, it drains you, one unfulfilled morning at a time. Then came the fall, not the kind that happens once, the slow collapse that takes years to. The morning you woke up and couldn't recognize yourself. The night you stared at the ceiling and realized your life had become a loop, a beautiful prison of predictability. You stopped fighting not because you lost, but because you forgot why you started. They call that adulthood. You call it surrender. And deep down, you know it was never your fault. You were trained to comply, to perform, to smile, while your soul suffocated. You were told that rebellion was dangerous, but they never told you that obedience was deadly. Now, standing at the edge of yourself, you finally see it. The truth they hid in plain sight. The system isn't broken. It works perfectly, just not for you. It wasn't built to serve your freedom. It was built to contain it. Every rule, every expectation, every distraction was crafted to keep you small enough to manage, predictable enough to control. And yet, even as they tighten the walls, they can't stop the one thing they fear most: awareness. Because once you see the cage for what it is, you stop being the prisoner. You become the threat. You wake up before the sun, not because you want to, but because something inside you refuses to rest. The room feels heavy, not from the air, but from the silence that has learned to judge you. You sit there, staring at the same cracked ceiling, the same faint shadow of your old self whispering that maybe this is all you'll ever be. Every morning bleeds into another, and yet time no longer feels like motion. It feels like repetition, punishment disguised as purpose. You tell yourself you're free, but your routine owns you. You're not living. You're performing survival in a world that applauds obedience and punishes awareness. The system doesn't destroy you with pain. It destroys you with comfort. It lulls you into stillness, feeding you endless distraction, teaching you that numbness is. You scroll, you consume, you follow, and little by little, your mind bends until you forget it was ever meant to be sharp. Every advertisement becomes a sermon. Every influencer becomes a prophet of mediocrity. You're told to chase happiness but never purpose, to speak about self-love but never self-control. You start mistaking sedation for balance, confusion for individuality. The more you obey, the more they celebrate you. The quieter you become, the more they say you're doing well. But deep inside, something trembles. It's not depression. It's rebellion, a quiet revolt in the back of your skull that refuses to die. You feel it when you're surrounded by people who laugh too easily, who drink too much, who worship things that mean nothing. You look at them and see ghosts, animated by fear, pretending it's joy. You try to speak truth once, but their eyes glaze over, trained to reject anything that threatens their illusion. So you stop speaking. You start observing. That's when the loneliness arrives, not as absence, but as awareness. The kind of silence that comes when you finally realize how asleep the world really is. You remember the promises they sold you. Study hard, work harder, stay cool, fit in, obey, and one day you'll be free. But you did all of it, and instead of freedom, you got exhaustion. You became the perfect cog, efficient, predictable, replaceable. You learned how to smile on command, how to hide your rage under polite conversation, how to play the game so well that you forgot there was ever another way to live. They don't need to chain your body when your mind already kneels. You begin to see it now. The architecture of control isn't made of walls, it's made of habits. It's the way you doubt yourself before you even try. It's the way you apologize for wanting more. It's the invisible leash made of your own fear. The world doesn't silence you with violence. It silences you with noise, constant, empty noise that keeps you distracted just enough to never hear your own thoughts again. You weren't supposed to question it, but you did. And now, you can't go back to sleep. You sit in the dark, and for the first time, it's quiet enough to hear what's been whispering beneath all the noise. Not the world's voice, yours. The one you've silenced for years under the weight of approval, fear, and borrowed dreams. You thought you were exhausted from working too hard, but the truth hits colder. You're tired of betraying yourself. Every compromise, every fake smile, every time you swallowed the truth just to survive another day. It's been a slow execution, not of your body, but of your spirit. And now, there's nothing left to distract you. The mask has cracked, and beneath it, the real you stares back, feral, patient, and done playing. You start to realize that no one is coming. No savior, no miracle, no rescue. The people you waited for are busy fighting their own invisible wars. The mentors you idolized were just better at hiding their fear. The system you obeyed was never built to save you. It was built to keep you predictable, tired, and replaceable. You were trained to mistake comfort for peace, obedience for wisdom, and silence for strength. They told you to trust the process, but never mentioned that the process was designed to drain your will until you begged to belong. You see it now, how everything was engineered to make you forget your own fire. But something ancient stirs inside you, something that doesn't ask permission. It's not rage, it's clarity. A blade forged from every moment you were underestimated, every insult, every rejection, every night you stared at the ceiling asking if it was worth it. It all becomes, you realize pain was never punishment. It was the blacksmith's hammer, shaping something the system feared. You, the version of you that doesn't beg, doesn't explain, doesn't wait. The one that studies betrayal like scripture, that learns to weaponize patience, that smiles when the world doubts again. Because doubt is the oxygen of the weak. You start to see through things, the fake humility of those who mock ambition, the false kindness of those who secretly crave your downfall, the smallness in people who call your focus obsession. You recognize their eyes, the ones who've already surrendered, who envy your wounds because they never dared to bleed. You stop taking advice from quitters. You stop sharing plans with the frightened. You start speaking less, moving sharper, thinking deeper. Your silence becomes strategy. Your distance becomes protection. You become your own prophecy, one no one saw coming because they were too busy looking for permission to rise. The night that once swallowed you whole now feels different. It listens, it watches, it respects you. You finally earned your solitude, not as exile, but as evolution. Because the moment you stop waiting for rescue, you become dangerous. The system cannot own what it cannot control. You realize you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to fracture the pattern. And now, standing in the quiet aftermath of your own awakening, you finally understand. The spark they tried to extinguish wasn't rebellion. It was rebirth. You stop waiting for life to hand you. The softness in you dies quietly, like the last candle in a ruined cathedral. You wake before the noise starts, not to chase peace, but to prepare for war. The world still whispers the same lies, that patience is weakness, that obedience is. But you've learned their language was never meant to set you free. You move differently, you speak less. You've replaced comfort with control, distraction with direction. The system still hums in the background, trying to lull you back to sleep, but something inside you refuses to rest. Your old self watches from the shadows, the one who hesitated, apologized, begged for understanding. That version of you still knocks at your skull like a ghost, begging to return. But you no longer answer. You've learned that growth doesn't roar, it cuts silently, reshaping you one scar at a time. Every early morning feels like confession, every repetition, a prayer. And though no one sees it yet, your blood remembers what it's like to fight without applause, to rebuild with trembling hands, to crawl while pretending to walk. The climb is brutal because no one tells you that isolation is the real battlefield. You lose people, not because they changed, but because you did. The ones who once smiled at your weakness now flinch at your discipline. They don't recognize the silence you wear like armor. You stopped explaining your hunger. Because hunger doesn't explain itself to the well-fed. You learn to eat in darkness, to train in obscurity, to burn without witness. The pain becomes sacred, a secret pact between you and something ancient that wants you to rise. You begin to understand why warriors prayed before battle, not for victory, but for clarity. You start to sense that the storm outside mirrors the one within. Every setback is a test of architecture. Will your foundation hold, or will you crumble like before? You feel betrayal, not from others, but from your own past, from the version of you that accepted mediocrity and called it peace. You burn that version on the altar of discipline, not out of hatred but necessity. The climb no longer feels like ascent. It feels like descent into the core of yourself. Every layer you peel back reveals another weakness disguised as belief, and you carve them out one by one until all that remains is something raw, dangerous, alive. The kind of strength that doesn't shout, the kind that waits, observes, strikes. You no longer seek light, you've learned to see in the dark. The world hasn't changed, the trap still exists, the noise still tempts, but you are no longer prey. You've become something else, patient, strategic, untamed. You realize power was never about dominance, it was about control. And now, when the system looks at you, it doesn't see rebellion. It sees something far worse. It sees someone who cannot be contained. They laughed when you fell silent. They thought you disappeared, faded into the background like all the others who broke before they bloomed. But silence isn't weakness, it's incubate. The same stillness that hides the storm. You stopped reacting, stopped defending, stopped explaining. You let them speak, you let them underestimate. And while they wasted their breath proving their importance, you were busy rebuilding your mind piece by sharp piece, thought by sharpened thought. You learned to weaponize your calm. You became strategic with your scars. You turned pain into information, betrayal into data, loss into leverage. Every failure became a fingerprint of wisdom etched into your bones. There was a time you sought validation, now you study it like an enemy. You watch how people chase approval and call it ambition. You see through the noise, the fake smiles, the shallow alliances, the empty victories. You stopped seeking light in others and started creating it in yourself. That was the real rebellion. The moment you realized your power wasn't meant to be seen, it was meant to be felt. They called it arrogance, but it was clarity. They called it obsession, but it was focus. You learn that real strength doesn't announce itself. It accumulates quietly until the world can't ignore it anymore. The shift wasn't loud, it was surgical. You began cutting away distractions, carving out patterns that didn't serve your sleep became strategy. Words became weapons. Every move carried meaning. You stopped chasing opportunities and started building gravity, pulling the right ones towards you through the sheer force of precision. And as the fog cleared, you noticed something unsettling. The system didn't fear chaos, it feared consciousness. It feared the individual who sees the game from above. Because the awakened mind doesn't compete, it calculates. It doesn't seek permission, it creates paths where none exist. You started playing life like chess while everyone else was still gambling. You moved differently. Your silence became dangerous, your presence unnerving. They sensed it, the ones who once dismissed you. The same people who laughed at your discipline now whisper your name with confusion. They don't understand how you changed without warning, how you became untouchable without noise. But it wasn't sudden, it was engineered, built through nights of restraint, mornings of resolve, and years of invisible warfare against your own weakness. You were never against them, you were against the part of you that kept surrendering. Now, when you walk, the air shifts. You carry the weight of someone who's been through fire and learned to breathe smoke. You look at the world not with hope, but with understanding. You see the design behind every trap, the pattern behind every promise, and still you move forward, not out of anger, but out of mastery. Because you've learned the most dangerous truth of all, power isn't taken. It's grown in silence, in suffering, in solitude. You've become what the system was never prepared for. A mind that cannot be owned, a soul that cannot be broken, and a presence that no longer fits inside their design. You no longer recognize the version of yourself that once begged for permission, the one who waited for approval, for validation, for someone to notice the effort behind the silence. That person died quietly somewhere between the nights you didn't sleep and the mornings you rose anyway. What stands now is sharper, colder perhaps, but infinitely clearer. You've learned that survival isn't granted to the kind-hearted. It's earned by those who turn pain into calculation. The same world that dismissed you now studies your every move. They whisper your name differently now, not in mockery, but in caution. You used to think the enemy was out there. The boss, the system, the noise, but the war was always within. You were your own cage. Every self-doubt, every hesitation, every moment you bowed your head to avoid conflict. That was the real prison. When you finally looked in the mirror and said no more, the chains didn't shatter with noise, they dissolved in silence. You stopped chasing, you started mastering chaos. Because peace without power is just another form of control. Now, you move different. You speak less, but every word carries weight. You walk through the same rooms that once made you shrink, and the walls themselves seem to step back. People sense it, the shift, They can't define it, but they feel it like a storm building behind calm eyes. You've become unreadable, and that is your greatest advantage. The loud ones still think dominance is about being seen. You've learned it's about being inevitable. Power isn't the roar of a lion. It's the quiet stare that freezes everything around it. There was a time you wanted revenge. Now you want silence. There was a time you wanted recognition. Now you crave You've realized that real power never announces itself. It simply alters reality. You used to break under betrayal. Now you build from it. Every person who used you, underestimated you, doubted you, they were architects of your endurance. They don't know it, but they forged something sacred. You've become the very storm they once warned you about. You stopped asking why life was unfair. You began using its unfairness as leverage. Every closed door became a wall you studied until you could walk through it. Every rejection became fuel. You started seeing patterns, how manipulation thrives on emotion, how weakness hides behind charm, how truth is always buried under comfort. And as you pulled those threads apart, something ancient woke up inside you. The strategist, the observer, the quiet architect. You no longer react, you design. And when you finally stand at the summit of what they said was impossible, there's no celebration, only stillness, the kind that comes when a prophecy fulfills itself. You look back, not in nostalgia, but in clarity. Every wound was a symbol, every betrayal a lesson in disguise. You realize you were never fighting the system. You were refining yourself until even the system couldn't define you. The cage wasn't meant to hold you. It was meant to prove that nothing ever could. You returned to the place where it all began. The silence feels heavier now, not because it's empty, but because you finally understand it. Once, that silence crushed you. It was the sound of defeat, of dreams suffocating under the weight of other people's. But now it's different. It's sacred. The quiet has become your language, your strategy, your weapon. You don't crave noise anymore. You don't need validation. You've learned that real power doesn't shout. It watches, it calculates, it moves when the world is. The world you once served now looks unfamiliar. The faces you used to chase, the voices you once obeyed, all blend into a blur of hollow motion. They still fight for approval, still trade authenticity for applause. You used to be one of them, hungry for acceptance, desperate for a place inside the system that was never built for your kind. Now, you stand outside it, watching the machine eat its own children. You don't feel anger and just clarity, because you finally see it for what it is. A self-feeding illusion, powered by fear, distraction, and comfort. You've changed in ways they'll never comprehend. The softness they mistook for weakness was reborn as precision. The doubt they planted in you became fuel. Every betrayal forged a sharper instinct. Every night alone became a silent ritual of evolution. They taught you obedience, but you learned strategy. They showed you fear, but you mastered control. The same shadows that used to terrify you now kneel at your feet, whispering secret survival. You became what the system feared most, someone who cannot be controlled, someone who remembers who they are. You don't need revenge. You don't need applause. What you've built inside you is older than both. It's the echo of warriors who learned to outthink their cages. You've inherited their discipline, their calm, their defiance. You walk through the same streets that once broke you, but your eyes don't flinch anymore. You've learned to see through the facade, the false smiles, the digital crowns, the empty thrones. You see the truth now. The game was never about winning. It was about keeping you too distracted to notice you were already. Freedom isn't loud, it's subtle. It's the way you move through chaos without reacting, the way you keep your emotions sharp, your circle small, your silence valuable. They don't realize it yet, but the cage has lost its power. You outgrew it the moment you stopped explaining yourself. You became untouchable the moment you realized no one could take from you what they did. And now, when you look back at that old version of yourself, the one who begged, doubted, and waited, you don't feel shame, you feel gratitude. That version of you died so this one could be born. And somewhere out there, someone still staring at their reflection, still fighting their invisible chains, will hear your silence and recognize. They'll see what you've become. A mirror of what they could be. Because every system, no matter how powerful, eventually trembles when just one person remembers their power was never permission. It was destiny.